The night was alive, a symphony of crickets chirping, owls hooting, and the distant barking of dogs. But beneath this nocturnal chorus, a darker secret hid. Whispered stories spoke of a creature born from shadow and slime. The Boogerman. They called him Boogerman because of the viscous, green mucus that oozed from its pores. Some said he was once a man, twisted by a cruel experiment gone wrong. And tonight, the legend of the Boogerman was about to become a horrifying reality for a 12-year-old boy named Ethan. Ethan's room was his sanctuary, a place of comic books, action figures, and the comforting glow of his nightlight. Outside, a storm raged, mirroring the growing unease in Ethan's stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. Then a flash of lightning illuminated the world outside his window, and that's when he saw it. A grotesque silhouette perched on the old oak tree in his backyard. The creature stood unnaturally still, its eyes glowing an eerie green in the darkness. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Time seemed to slow down as the creature turned its head, its gaze locking onto Ethan's. The Boogerman. It was real. Terror, raw and consuming, seized Ethan. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silence of his room. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't tear his gaze from the nightmare creature outside his window. A scream, high and piercing, tore from his throat. He scrambled back from the window, tripping over his own feet as he desperately searched for his parents. "Mom! Dad!" he cried, his voice choked with fear. Ethan scrambled to his feet and raced out of his room, his bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor. "Mom! Dad! It's the Boogerman! He's here!" His parents rushed into the hallway, their faces etched with concern. "Ethan, what's wrong?" His father's voice was a calming presence in the storm of Ethan's fear. Ethan pointed back towards his room, his hand trembling. "He was outside my window, the Boogerman, I saw him." His mother knelt before him, her hand gentle on his cheek. "Ethan, honey, it was just a nightmare. You're safe here with us." But Ethan knew what he had seen, the creature's glowing eyes, the oozing slime, the way it had looked directly at him. This was no dream. This was real. His father lifted him into his arms, carrying him back to his room. "It's okay, son. It was just a bad dream," he soothed, tucking Ethan back into bed. His parents stayed with him until his sobs subsided into sniffles. They told him stories, sang him songs, anything to chase away the lingering shadows of fear. Eventually, exhaustion claimed him, and he drifted off to sleep, his parents' comforting presence, a shield against the darkness. But even in sleep, the fear lingered. Ethan tossed and turned, haunted by images of the Boogerman. He could feel the creature's eyes on him, watching him, waiting for him. The storm outside had subsided, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Ethan slowly opened his eyes, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to see, had to know that it was truly gone. He crept out of bed, his bare feet padding silently across the floor. Taking a deep breath, he pulled back the curtain. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to paint the sky a pale orange as Ethan peeked out from behind the curtain. The storm had vanished, leaving behind a world washed clean and sparkling in the morning light. The old oak tree, once a menacing silhouette, now stood tall and proud, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. Ethan scanned the backyard, his heart still pounding from the night's terrors, but there was no sign of the Boogerman. The shadows had retreated, and with them, the terrible creature. Relief washed over Ethan like a warm wave. His parents had been right. It had just been a bad dream, a figment of his overactive imagination fueled by the storm's fury. He turned away from the window, a newfound lightness in his steps. The Boogerman was gone, banished by the light of day. Ethan went about his morning routine, the terrifying events of the night slowly fading from his mind. But as lunchtime approached, a gnawing unease began to creep back into Ethan's heart. It had been too real. The glowing eyes, the oozing slime, the sheer terror that had gripped him. It couldn't have just been a dream. Unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong, Ethan found himself drawn back to his bedroom window. He pushed open the door to his room, his breath catching in his throat. His feet seemed to move on their own towards the source of his fear. Ethan peered out the window, his heart sinking. The Boogerman was back. Its glowing green eyes burned into him, sending shivers down his spine. The creature's grotesque form oozed green slime. What chilled Ethan was the Boogerman's expression, a predatory gleam, a deep, primal desire. Ethan stumbled back, gasping. Terror seized him. He had been wrong. The Boogerman was real, and it was back. This time, it was here for him. He had to get help, but fear gripped him. Ethan stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat, his eyes locked on the terrifying spectacle unfolding before him. The Boogerman, a creature seemingly ripped from the darkest recesses of a nightmare, was moving with a sickening fluidity that belied its grotesque form. Slowly, deliberately, the Boogerman raised its hand, its long, slime-covered fingers contorting into a grotesque parody of a human gesture. The creature then pointed, a single accusing finger directed at Ethan, through the glass of the window pane. He felt a primal fear, a deep-seated terror that resonated in his very bones. The Boogerman was real, and it was fixated on him, its message chillingly clear: "You are mine." Ethan wanted to scream, to cry out for help, but his voice seemed lost, trapped in the suffocating grip of fear. His legs felt like lead, his body rooted to the spot, as if an unseen force held him captive. He could only watch in horrified fascination as the Boogerman began to move again. With a sickening, sucking sound, the creature peeled itself away from the oak tree, its slime-coated body leaving a trail of glistening residue on the bark. It took a step toward the house, its movements no longer slow and deliberate, but infused with a terrifying urgency. He had to get away, had to find help, had to escape the nightmare that was closing in on him. Turning from the window, Ethan scrambled towards his bedroom door, his bare feet slipping on the hardwood floor. Each panicked breath felt like a shard of ice in his lungs, the air thick with the stench of fear and something else, something alien and foul that he couldn't quite place. He could hear sounds now coming from outside, from beyond the thin barrier of his bedroom window. A low scratching like claws on wood sent chills down his spine. Ethan's eyes darted around the room, desperately searching for a place to hide, a sanctuary from the nightmare that was closing in. His gaze fell upon his closet, its dark interior offering a sliver of hope in the face of overwhelming terror. Without hesitation, Ethan lunged towards the closet, flinging open the door and diving inside, pulling the door shut behind him with a desperate clang. He huddled in the darkness, his small body trembling, his mind a maelstrom of fear. The closet air hung heavy, thick with the scent of dust and cedar. Ethan huddled deeper into his pile of forgotten toys and blankets, his small frame racked with silent sobs. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves against his window sent a fresh wave of terror through him. He strained to hear over the frantic pounding of his own heart. The scratching sounds continued, closer now, accompanied by a soft, sickening thudding against the side of the house. The Boogerman was climbing. He wished desperately for his parents, for the comforting light of day, for anything to chase away the nightmare that had invaded his world. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The scratching sound stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow more terrifying than the sounds themselves. Ethan held his breath, afraid to move, afraid to even think, lest he betray his hiding place to the creature, lurking just beyond the thin veil of his closet door. Then a soft click, barely audible above the pounding of Ethan's heart. The doorknob to his bedroom door rattled. Ethan's eyes flew open, widening in terror as he heard the sounds of heavy slime-coated footsteps padding across his bedroom floor. The silence stretched, taut with unspoken menace. Ethan felt a cold sweat prickling at his skin. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that the Boogerman knew he was hiding in there. Suddenly, the closet door exploded inward, ripped from its hinges with a terrifying splintering crash. Ethan recoiled with a gasp of terror, scrambling back into the farthest corner of the closet, his eyes wide with primal fear. The Boogerman stood framed in the doorway, its grotesque form backlit by the faint moonlight filtering through the bedroom window. It towered over him, its glowing green eyes burning into him with a hunger that spoke of dark and unspeakable appetites. Ethan cowered, paralyzed by terror, as the Boogerman reached for him, its slime-covered hand outstretched, its long, sharp claws glinting menacingly in the dim light. The next morning, the sun rose on a world seemingly untouched by the horrors of the night. Birds sang, children laughed, and life went on as if nothing had changed. But in the hallowed halls of Ethan's school, a different story unfolded. Whispers, hushed and urgent, snaked through the classrooms, carrying with them a chilling truth. Ethan was gone. The details were scant, shrouded in the ambiguity of rumor and speculation. Some said he had run away, unable to cope with the pressures of home and school. But for those who knew the legend, the truth was all too clear. The Boogerman had claimed another victim. Ethan's room remained untouched, a shrine to a life tragically cut short. His toys sat gathering dust, his books lay unopened, and the air hung heavy with the weight of absence. The broken closet door stood as a silent testament to the terror that had unfolded within those walls. His parents, consumed by grief and guilt, clung to the hope that their son was still alive, somewhere out there, lost and alone. But deep down, a chilling certainty gnawed at their hearts. They knew in the depths of their souls that the whispers were true. The Boogerman had taken their son. The legend lived on, a chilling reminder that some nightmares are all too real.